All right, welcome everybody to tonight's meeting of the Whately Planning Board, September 25th, starting at 5. We're going to move right into a joint public hearing with the tree warden, who is here tonight via Zoom, Keith Bardwell, regarding proposed removal of various trees along Swamp Road, Westbrook Road, Masterson Road, Chestnut Plain Road, Conway Road, Haydenville Road, and Weber Road. We'll just share the record, my screen, the legal advertisement, which appeared in a paper of record more than 14 days on 2 successive occasions. So here is the legal notice. And I think what we're going to do, Keith, do you want to, I came in with a few questions for you before we get into the substance of this, but I'd be happy to yield the floor to you to sort of give us an overview of what's being proposed.
Yeah, let me go ahead and, I'll read the notice. I guess my other question is, do you want me to, as I read through, do you want me to read each tree that is on the list, or since you're sharing the screen, is that adequate?
I believe sharing the screen and the fact that it's publicly noticed and posted is sufficient. All right, otherwise we'll be here all night.
Okay.
Well,
I'll start by giving an overview on things, and I'll start by saying that I'll read the first paragraph, and that is: notice is hereby given that in accordance with Chapter 87, Section 3, and Chapter 40, Section 15C, a joint public hearing will be held at 5 p.m. on Wednesday, September 25th, 2024, at 4 Sandy Lane, Whately, and via Zoom for the purpose of the removal of the following trees. And that's where everybody that can see the screen can see the list. The first 3 roads, Swamp Road, Westbrook Road, and Masterson Road, are on this hearing, but they are not technically required to be part of the joint hearing. But since I had them as well, they are not on the scenic road, whereas Conway Road, Chestnut Plain, Haydenville, and Weber are considered to be scenic roads, which require the joint hearing under Chapter 40, Section 15C. So that's an overview of it. As far as the Swamp Road removal, the reason for that, for so many of them, not only are we looking at the hemlock and the beech on that road are under distress. Most of the hemlock are all dead or very close to dying. But the other thing that has been a hindrance for us on Swamp Road is the trees are so close to the edge of the road that there's no way that the town can ever have a drainage ditch along that side. And as we are getting more and more heavier rainstorms, we have the road floods in the area of La Francis, and we're not able to get the water to adequately to the ditches that are all, so we want to be able to remove the dead trees and a few of the ones that are alive for the purpose of being able to put in some drainage so that water can be drained off the road and get it into the ditches. So that's primarily why there's so many on Swamp Road, whereas the other ones, some of them are on there because they are a request for Eversource to be doing some tree work on Conway Road, Masterson Road, Westbrook Road, and Chestnut Plain Road are being done for the purpose. Some of those are for the purpose of Eversource to do line maintenance on their power lines. Then majority of them, like on Haydenville Road and Weber Road, are trees that are on there, primarily ash trees. And if people haven't been attuned to what's going on with ash trees, is because of the emerald ash borer and the ash dieback within a few more years, there will not be a living ash tree in Whately, period. If right now you drive around, well, we're starting to see foliage change, but if you were to drive around and see a tree with only a couple leaves on it or a few leaves or totally dead, chances are it's an ash, because when they do get infected, they die very quick and very fast. And the branches, everything becomes pretty brittle and it starts to drop major limbs pretty fast. So that's an oversight to everything. And from there, Brant, I guess if you had some other questions, go ahead.
Great, thank you. That was very helpful, Keith. And Sarah, you're monitoring. We have somebody waiting to get in from the waiting room. Okay.
Thank you.
So and I think you more or less answered at least some of my questions coming in. One question was, how does a tree, this is the first time I've chaired such a tree removal hearing, so I had some just general questions. I will get comments from the audience in a moment. So how does a tree make it onto the list? It sounds like one source, Keith, is a utility company like Eversource submits a request. Another way a tree gets on the list is a property owner makes a request. Is that pretty much it, or is the town? It sounds like with Swamp Road, the town is sort of proactively evaluating various trees and making recommendations. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah, that is very accurate. You're right. Homeowners, some of these on here are a result. Also, homeowner has come to me and said, you know what? I'm nervous. I'm worried that this tree is going to cause damage to either my property or neighboring properties. And we get, so to speak, put on notice that there's something wrong with the tree, and we have to respond to that, or then we become liable. So, yes.
Okay, good. And that reminds me, I believe that there is at least one or perhaps only one tree on North Road that is not currently on this list that you would like to
Yes.
recommend.
Correct. That was at 106 North Street. Judy Markland is the one that approached me, and I had it on a list, and when I was typing up this one, it got neglected. So I apologized to her, but she, being the property owner, is the one that has, again, put us on notice saying that it is dead. I know it's dead. It's an ash tree. And I just wanted to also bring that up. And my thoughts are, as long as there's no objections to any of the other trees, there should be no reason why that one would, especially since the property owner is the proponent behind it.
Right. And I have email from Judy confirming that that's her request. So just to make this simple, we are going to agree that we're amending this this list of trees with one additional ash tree located at 106 North Street. North Road. Is it North? I'm sorry, North Street?
North Street.
106 North Street. Okay. The second question I had, general question, was, what are the criteria for determining that a tree should be removed? And who's making those judgments? Is it you personally, Keith, or are there others involved in making these determinations?
That is the tree warden.
Okay, so it is you, and so could you just articulate what the criteria you generally use for determining that a tree should be recommended for removal?
Well, in most cases, with the way things operate in Whately, we're always responding to just dead trees and trees that have something wrong with it, or storm damage, things of that nature. Very, very seldom, and I can't even recall an instance where we would say we're going to have a tree hearing because we want to widen the road out per se. I mean, this is a little different with Swamp Road because I'm looking to do drainage, but most of the other ones on there, any of them that you see that are on this list that are either maples, ash tree, or beech tree. It's a result of them needing to come down before they do damage to property.
Okay, okay. When it comes to assessing the health of the trees, is that assessment made by you, or is anyone else involved in assessing the health of a tree?
As tree warden, visual, and I mean, it's a visual inspection.
Okay, and again, I'm just asking for my own benefit and for the benefit of the members of the board. When a tree is removed, does that include stump removal at all, ever, selectively?
In the case of when Whately removes a tree, we will do stump removal, provided it's in an area that warrants it. It's very expensive to do that. So if it is in somebody's front yard where they're mowing their lawn all around it, that would be a category where yes, it would be removed. If it's out in the middle of the woods and there's trees all around it and it happens to be a dead ash tree, we will not grind that stump up. In most cases, if you go in to try to do stump removal around live trees, you're going to end up killing other trees. So you have to be selective and cautious as to how you dispose and remove stumps.
Understood. And one of the drivers of that question is that several of these roads are scenic roads. So I'm kind of thinking about the potential impacts of removing a bunch of trees and leaving potentially non-scenic stumps behind. And, you know, maybe that's an issue, maybe it's not.
There is
Go
There
ahead.
is a scenario where in the past, and it's still our policy, when Eversource comes in and removes a tree, that's not, the town does not get involved in taking and grinding the stump. Usually if Eversource is willing, sometimes they will, but most likely they will never agree to grinding a stump.
Okay, okay. So what we'll, and then I guess this is again, one more general question before I think we'll proceed through kind of road by road and take comments and questions from stakeholders. But the last question is, can you sort of comment about replacement of trees that are removed? Like, I've always heard there's not much budget for it. There's issues with, you know, trees require some care and nurturing in order to establish. Can you just speak to that?
Sure. So in Whately, we have what's called when trees are cut down in the springtime, wood is cut and split and cordwood is sold to residents as if it's available. And when it runs out, it runs out. But the money from that goes into a revolving account, which is called a tree revolving account, and the proceeds from that go towards purchasing new trees. We planted some last year. However, one of my biggest obstacles and issues is to find someone who wants trees planted along their frontage, and the town is really limited to where we can plant trees because Eversource through the years has become so aggressive on what their requirements are for trimming and cutting that if there's power lines on the side of a road, I will not plant underneath power lines because we'll spend good money on a tree and then it's only a matter of time before they come in and just cut it up because it's under the power lines. So, and again, we have to do our planting in the town layout. In most cases, we got 5, 7, 8, maybe 10 feet at the most, other than Chestnut Plain. Most roads are very limited to how many feet I have before we're on private property, and the work I need to do needs to remain on private property. So where we can, we like to plant, but I've also had scenarios where I've approached a landowner and said, this would be a great place for a tree. And they say, well, I don't want it. Please don't do it. And that doesn't mean I can't, but if I do, and I don't have the blessing of the homeowner to help nurture it and give it some water, it's likely to not survive because the town does not have the ability to go around and water trees on a regular basis, where we would ask the homeowner to help us out in that first year or two while the tree is critical in its infancy for needing water and nurture.
Very good. I appreciate that. I want to make a couple more quick comments. And so number one, we did circulate this entire list to the Historical Commission because they're concerned about issues affecting scenic roads in Whately. We did get a response from the Historical Commission saying that they basically approve all of these removals that are on scenic roads, so there's no other feedback from the Historical Commission. I asked them whether they had discussed or had any requests related to stump removal, and they did not, or whatever that matters. Okay, and what I'd like to do, what I'm gonna propose we do is now go road by road and consider these as needed and take any comments and questions. But before we do that, I'd just like to see if, having now taken up some airtime to ask some very general questions, does anyone else have any general questions about tree removal in Whately or any of this before we go into specific roads and specific trees?
I actually have one, sorry, you guys. When it comes to the ash that you're taking down, are there specific regulations that require the disposal to be different than another tree that is not contaminated?
No. The
Okay.
the emerald ash borer is present. It is a pest. It is widespread across the entire country. The Northeast is one of the last remaining areas to really be wiped out. But if you go towards the west very far, ash have already been eliminated. So there is no requirements for us when we do take it down. In most cases, it becomes firewood either to the property owner or the town.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. So let's start with Swamp Road, this trees on Swamp Road.
Can I ask a quick question?
Go ahead, sorry, go ahead, Sarah.
Keith, just financially, so Eversource, the ones that they dictate, they pick up the cost for?
Yes, there is no expense for the town on the trees that they have requested.
Okay, when we go through, will you just let us know which ones are Eversource?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, that was helpful. So regarding Swamp Road, perfect timing. So Keith, are all of these being proposed to be removed by Whately versus Eversource?
Everything on Swamp Road is Whately.
Okay. I personally drove down Swamp Road, looked at all the marked trees, confirmed as best as I could as a non-tree expert. I didn't hug them individually, but I did look at them. I could tell that many of them, to my eyes, look not well. This is a Google Street View, just sort of down Swamp Road towards Whately Center. So you can, and this image was taken in October. This is shared. Sarah, you can see this street view remotely?
Yes.
Good. So this image was taken some number of years ago, October 2019, so it's not current as of yesterday, but at least you can get a sense of the trees, as Keith mentioned, being very close to the roadway and not with power lines directly underneath. So none of the ones on Swamp Road, Keith, are about concern of trees falling over and taking down power lines, is that right?
Well, there's a potential. However, most cases, because when a tree is on the opposite side of the road, and if you want to continue getting down, especially once we get down near a little bit further towards where the hemlock are, the dead hemlock are certainly have the possibility, the potential to go across the road and take out the power lines and take power out for the residents. But usually Eversource will not get involved with a tree that's on the opposite side of the road.
Okay, okay. So I didn't have any concerns about the trees on Swamp Road. And this, you think, Keith, will enable a drainage ditch on the northern edge of Swamp Road?
Yeah, as you're looking at the photo that we're all seeing, it'd be, on the opposite side of the utility lines is the area where right on the edge of the road, there's just no way to, now you're almost to the field, but there's just no room to put a drainage ditch and have the water running parallel to the road. And the tree roots in many cases impede the water from being able to run along the edge of the road. And if I try to go in there and do anything to dig it, it's going to it's going to destroy the root system anyways.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Go ahead.
Keith, at what point is a tree mature enough to come under this jurisdiction?
What's that, JD?
What caliber is the tree be fall under this jurisdiction?
Anything over 3 inches, I believe, is chapter 87.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, any members of the public have anything to ask about Swamp Road trees?
I think Mr. Grant's the stakeholder. He lives in Swamp Road.
Well, so if you, for people who are on Zoom, you can either come off mute and feel free to interrupt me at any time, or at least ask to be recognized, or you can use the chat, and hopefully Sarah will be able to kind of keep an eye on the chat in case people are submitting any comments or questions that way. All right, so with that, I'd like to move on to 62 Westbrook Road, also not a scenic road. And
62 is a result of Eversource.
okay. And I also drove up on Westbrook Road and I did see the marked tree and did again. Sort
So
of.
a little further. Nope, go the other way.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I think what I have to do is search.
Yeah, keep going that direction now.
Yeah,
It's up on the corner on the left. It's a leaning oak tree. It's a split. You're up. You went too far.
I think,
Right.
is it this one?
That's it right in there. Yep. Yes.
Yeah.
And all
Yeah.
Eversource looking to do is remove the one that is sort of splitting and leaning over the power lines.
Yeah, and you can see the power lines in the image. This image was taken very recently, August 2023. So, so that's fairly up to date in terms of.
And so that's just that front leader. They're not actually taking the entire tree down.
Okay, and this is an Eversource matter.
Yes.
So they'll deal with that and it doesn't, looks like stump removal. Anyway, this is not.
Right.
There's an instance where the power line's on the opposite side of the street.
Yeah, and it's a big enough tree. and
Well,
you
it's
can-
sort of in the middle, but yeah, it's crossing the road, but it's got such a lean to it that's why Eversource
Yeah,
has that concern.
yeah, okay. Again, I have no comment, any comments, questions about 62 Westbrook Road? Okay. So then we're gonna move on to, I should be able to do this. 23 Master Simulator. Interesting.
Our little guy.
Oh, there is no street view from Masterson. Google didn't send a truck down Masterson
I
Road.
can't imagine.
So, yeah, can't imagine why. Again, I did look at it. It's large import house. Oh, yes, I remember that one. It's on a weird little triangular plot of land. And, there's power lines. It looked particularly nasty. So is this a Eversource one on Masterson Road?
Yes, Eversource. When you look at, if from the roadside, it doesn't look too bad, but when you go on the back side of it, away from the road, you see all the rot in it.
Yeah, so you're gonna just have to imagine what this looks like. Okay. Any other comments or questions about the tree on Masterson Road? Boy, they have some nice views up there, I'll say. Biking along that road is no treat. All right, let's go now on to Chestnut Plain Road, which is our first scenic road, and we'll start over at 98 Chestnut Plain. 98 Chestnut Plain Road. Here, that's definitely one. That,
All right, so head down the hill, the other way.
oh, the other way, okay, that's right. The other down the hill.
The other down the hill. And these are, as you go down the hill on the left, there's a heavy wooded section,
Yeah, this whole section here along the power lines.
and it's all involved in power lines, and these are all Eversource.
Okay, and I think, yeah, there are many of these trees were marked. And they
Yeah.
don't look like they're living their best lives. So these are all in the town right of way. Are the property owners, I guess the only notice that the property owners get is when you put something on their tree, or they,
Eversource also contacts the property owners.
okay,
Not this property.
okay, well, so that sounds like there's some disagreement about that, or debate.
Well, they have, and because in addition to the list that is provided that where I'm telling you are Eversource, there are many other trees that Eversource are going to be removing under this project that are
Right.
on private property and nothing to do with the town, and I have no jurisdiction on them, and that's why they're not on the list.
Right. Okay. So I looked at all of the trees on and I'm now moving in towards town, I think. I have to get past Claverack.
Right, the next one is 161, which is way up approaching the center of town.
Working my way uphill with this tool. And that was, so were there any other comments or questions about the trees at 98 Chestnut Plain?
No.
No, okay, getting close. At it. Oh, yeah, I think we're
All right, now you've gone too far.
I think it's this one.
Yeah,
right?
it's that one right there that you can see that is, yep,
All right, let's get right in front of it.
I believe that's it.
Yeah, this is the one.
Correct.
Okay.
And
And
it's,
so unhealthy, and it's right by the property lines, and I'm guessing this is an Eversource issue.
yes, Eversource.
Okay. So this is at 161. Okay. Comments, questions? This. So now I think we're gonna leave Chestnut Plain Road. We're going to go to Conway Road. See if they sent a Google vehicle down Conway Road. It's actually listed in Whately. So here we are. Like we're at 48 Conway Road.
All right, they're actually keep turning to your right. There you go, a little more. All right, those
These
trees
guys?
that you see, well, right in there where there's those two that are got a big lean in them over the power lines.
Yep,
Those are the ones that are on that list, and these are Eversource removal.
okay. So
Yeah,
this is,
those are those lean, they're gonna come down across the power lines.
okay. Anyone here speaking up for threatening trees to take out power along Conway Road? Anyone want that? Okay, all right. I think now, am I moving in the right direction towards 62?
No, you gotta turn around.
All right.
Up the road.
I don't bike on Conway Road, so I don't know it as well. All right. Let's see, I should be able to just, again, put this number in and. So we're now jumping to 62 Conway Road.
And there's gonna be so many trees up through here, it might be difficult to identify each individual one, but
Yeah. Well, did anyone have a chance to look at anything on Conway Road?
Yeah,
I
they're
didn't get,
leaning.
what was that?
They're all leaning. I'm assuming that's why you're
well,
taking it out.
what I can tell you is
Good.
number 48, number 62, and number 82 are all Eversource.
Okay. Yeah, the ones up above, those are dead. The ash, the maple, and the ashes.
The 148 and the 154 are either a result of the homeowner asking me and also in decline. In the case of at 148, there's the ash tree that is on its way out, and the maple tree is in serious dieback and got a lot of rot on the roadside.
Yeah, I believe we have somebody here. Are you, Paul,
Yes.
representing 148 Conway Road?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so, Paul, what would you like to say about the two trees listed at 148 Conway?
Well, I think they should come down.
You think they should come down?
The maple tree is clearly a hazard to traffic and probably utilities. And our own property. The ash tree is less of a hazard to us because it's located farther away.
Okay,
And it's completely dead, almost completely dead, so I think they should both come down. My question has to do, what is the fate of the wood of trees that are cut down with regard to the homeowner? Can the homeowner access the wood once it's cut down?
Our policy is that if a homeowner or the landowner is interested in the wood and they would like it, we will leave it there for them to take care of. If they say we don't want it, please remove it, then it's the town's responsibility to get it out of there.
but is this removal being done by Eversource or by the town at 148 Conway Road?
The town,
Okay, so this is Whately, not Eversource.
correct.
Keith, would this include, getting rid of the stump, at least for the maple?
Yeah, those would be, again, because they're being done at our expense, the stumps would get done at some point, yes.
Okay, great. And what, say the maple comes down, where does the wood go once it's down? If I wanted
Well,
the wood,
again, if the property owner wants it, most cases sometimes if it's like really close by when we're picking it up and moving it, we can place it in another spot. We've done that in the past, like on Swamp Road, where the property owner will stack it up and then the property owner goes about cutting it up at their own convenience. If in some cases it just stays right where it is, the homeowner will move it themselves. It depends on each situation, but we try to work with that property owner to do such.
okay, I don't think I can move these trees by myself, but
Well, just in small pieces, Paul. I mean, it builds a healthy body.
that's right. I've had plenty of experience building a healthy body.
Right, yes, okay.
That's great, okay.
So you might be requesting some useful placement of, or piling up of the wood
Yes.
by the town.
Yes,
Keith, when the town takes these actions, will they provide notice in advance or work
Yes,
in
yeah.
way with?
We can certainly work with those. Yes, that's doable.
So Paul
And
doesn't.
the last one on Conway Road is just a little further around the corner past the chapel, and it's a dead ash tree.
Okay, and is that an Eversource or Whately issue?
Whately, there's no power lines involved there.
Okay, all right.
What, will be noticed in advance? Do you have any sort of estimation, Keith, about which month this might happen?
There's quite a few on this list, and we're gonna start doing some this fall time, and we'll continue. So I can't guarantee that every tree on the list that we're responsible for will get down before winter, but we're gonna start and do what I can. But I'll let you know, Paul, beforehand.
I'm in no rush. Take your time. The trees have been there for a long time. They'll stay there.
Hey, Keith, I know you're not an arborist, but is this one particular strain of ash tree that's got the emerald ash borer, or is it all ash trees?
All of the ash.
My dad's got a couple of mountain ashes, I remember planting, and they seem to be in pretty good shape, but they're-
Okay, well, I know definitely green ash. There may be some hybrid versions of ash tree that
Yeah.
will not be taken by the ash borer, but any native ash tree is definitely detrimental.
makes beautiful flooring.
Keith, do you think that ash tree on 148 has any particular value once it's down, for instance, firewood?
Yeah, that's what, like I said, that's when that one there, it's firewood purposes. One of the other problems with just about all roadside trees, they don't really pose any value for lumber, because the odds of them either having barbed wire in them or somewhere along the way somebody pounding a nail in it to put a sign on or something of that nature has always will be one reason where a lumber mill cannot afford to put a log on their mill and have it damage their blades.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, did you achieve satisfaction?
I'm satisfied.
Okay,
Good work.
all right, so
Thank you.
that takes care of Conway Road.
See you, Paul.
Yeah, everybody.
Take care.
See you, Paul.
Good work.
Okay.
Terrific work, by the way, man. I just say you did an incredible job.
I
with all
love,
this
yeah,
Google Maps. I'm impressed.
give me 5 stars on Google review, please. Okay, Haydenville Road, we're moving to.
Well, you might as well, you're close to
On
Weber.
Weber.
You might as well start on Weber.
Yeah, okay, good point. Well, I'm just gonna jump to 5 Weber Road.
All right. Okay.
Weber Road. 5 Weber Road in West Whately. All right, here we are. Let's pop over there. Have a look. All right, where are we? So this is August 2023.
All right. Go in that direction a little bit more. One more click, maybe. All right, now pan to your left. And it's right there. It's a cherry tree, and the top of it it's dead. You can't there's so many entangled in there, but you really can't see it.
That's the cherry tree right there.
Oh,
This one?
No, to the right. The next one.
Oh, this one.
That's cherry tree.
Okay,
Yeah, right there.
okay.
Us carpenters can sense the cherry wood.
Okay,
it's a vine.
all right.
Hard to think about.
So on Weber Road, the 16-inch cherry is a Whately or Eversource issue?
Whately.
Okay. And again, the argument for, it's just dead, so let's get rid of it.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, that's a perfectly fine answer. And then there was, should we move over to,
If you can head back towards Laurel Mountain, yeah, go in that direction. And you can begin to see that ash tree. There's one. If you pick, can you go see that dead one right in there with no leaves on that branch?
this?
No, no, that one's already snapped off. A little further up by the utility pole, there's,
Fine,
Next to the
yeah,
turn left.
too far.
There we are.
you've gone
Alright.
too far. Right? That's
This
part
is-
of, that's a lot of them. Yep.
Okay. All right. So these on,
They're right on like the stone wall.
yeah, so these are again, a Whately matter due to,
That one is, there's some that are like, you know, you can't tell from the photo, but are not leaning over the road.
right,
And Eversource, they're not a removal. So some of them, those are all Whately request.
okay, so all of these on including at the intersection of Laurel Mountain Road is Whately.
Yes, everything on Weber is a result of Whately.
Okay. And these are homeowner requests.
Not that one.
Okay, not that one. All right. And then I guess, so any other questions about Weber Road, comments like that? And I guess the last one is Haydenville Road. Why don't we just pop over to, I don't know, 342 Haydenville?
Okay.
Street names.
Somebody's just entered the waiting room, Sarah. All
Thank you.
right, so that, oh yeah, so this is one right near the Whately Inn. All right, so I think it's this one right here.
Yes.
Okay.
And
So this
if you
is
see the bark on that, there's no bark. The bark is all falling off the roadside.
Right,
And it's seen its day.
yeah. How far back from the edge of the road does the town right of way extend?
It varies.
It varies. It depends on the width of the layout and where the road lays within the layout. Some places it's centered, some places it's tight all the way one way, some places it's the other way. But if you see that picket fence to your left a little bit, that's property line.
Okay, all right. And again, presumably you're confirming that the location of these trees are indeed either, well, I mean, Eversource does what Eversource does, but, I guess Eversource can request removing trees or trimming trees that are not in town rights of way, right? If they're.
Oh, yeah.
a problem.
And there's an awful lot of them that they'll be taking down on those other roads that are not in our layout, in the town's layout.
Okay.
Down that maple there.
So that's 342 and 325. Is that closer in towards the Whately Inn or further away? This
That
three-
is going back towards, away
Yeah.
from the center.
Away
It's
from
up by the next one at 342, that'd be up by where the pound is.
Okay. All right.
It's keep
Like,
going a little.
Right up, just past the corner, right?
Yep, it's a maple tree. It'll be on your right-hand side as we get up there.
Okay. Well, I think at this
Nope.
point, do we need to see it
Turned-
or
No, you gotta turn around and go up the hill some more.
keep going up the hill, huh?
Yep, turn around. There you go. Keep going.
All right.
Oh, change season, yeah, so it's season
Yeah.
change.
Yeah,
And we're back to spring.
keep going up the hill.
Keep going.
There's,
I know, this is
All
where
right,
my.
now
work stuff-
you can, all right, you're right there. That, on the right-hand side, can you pan up? Look up
Yeah.
at all or not? That is, there it is, right there.
Okay,
The one that has very few leaves on it.
right, okay. And maybe a threat to the power line if it comes down?
Possibly, but again, Eversource, that's a Whately removal.
Okay. All right, so this is a Whately removal. Okay, so I think we've covered them all.
The ones
Um,
at Strip Road, one of those is has very,
The
very. few
Haydenville
people.
and Strip intersection was a dead ash.
Yeah,
There's no houses nearby.
I'm sure it's a lot less expensive for the town to do it now, scheduled, than doing it
Yeah,
on overtime and emergency.
Right.
Road.
okay. All right, so I think we've gone through the list. Our job on the planning board is to have a formal vote to approve or not approve or reject any of
Is
these.
like a motion.
So, and I would want to point out that whoever, other than me, the moderator, who makes the motion, should include in their motion, a motion related to this posted list with the addition of one ash tree at 106 North Street.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the tree removal on this list, including the tree at 106 North Street,
Which is an ash tree.
which is an ash tree.
I'll
Okay, the
second that.
motion is made. Was it Sarah?
Yes.
Sarah seconded the motion. All right, the motion has been made and seconded, so we're gonna do a roll call vote. Starting with the mover, JD, the seconder, Sarah,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Patty,
Yes.
you're formal, you get the vote. All right.
I feel so official.
And I vote aye, so as one of your first official, dude, you've taken down a whole bunch of trees in Whately
Don't
that
tell me.
are either threatening or unhealthy or, okay. Then I think, the motion carries. We're going to now close the public hearing. Did I think I did open the public hearing formally. So now I'm officially closing the public hearing at 5:53 PM. Took a little bit of time, but there was a lot of trees to go through. Okay, let me stop sharing trees. So it makes a kind of sort of relaxing screen view. Okay. So thank you for your patience and thoughtfulness and all that. Let's move on to the next.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Keith.
Yeah.
Good job.
Okay. Right. Next item is continued discussion of a proposal to allow limited marijuana product manufacturing in the commercial district by special permit. And I'd like to find out, like, do we have anybody from DMCTC on the call? That Ethan is probably here about the landscaping matter. Okay. All right, interesting. I did send a copy of the agenda to Isaac, the attorney representing the MCTC who attended our last meeting, as well as Jared. So they're not here, that's still okay. So let me,
Do we table it till they're present, till next meeting?
we do not have to. In fact, I would rather us not.
Okay.
It'll be a matter of public record. In fact, go ahead, Sarah.
I'm very late with the chat. Richard LaFrance, the trees that do get cut down, would I be able to keep the firewood? I'm 53 Swamp Road, the tree that came down last year, I was able to have piled at the end of my driveway. Would that be possible? So,
Yes, my question, they answered it throughout the other questions. He was saying they can work with the landowner. And then they said they'll notify when it's gonna happen. Obviously, I believe he said. So, yeah, no, all my questions were answered. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Let me just encourage you to to email or otherwise contact the tree warden. The contact information for the tree warden is available on the Whately Town website. So it would be, I strongly encourage you to just reach out to the tree warden and let them know that this is what you would like.
All right,
All right.
thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you for
Oh.
your, oh, go ahead.
The ditch. And also real quick, the ditch, for the drainage, I know me and or the other gentleman, the potato farmer, I want to say, am I supposed to be maintaining that ditch right there? For the drainage?
I'm sorry, I cannot answer. It's not really a planning board matter. I
Oh,
would
all right.
definitely take that up with the, probably the highway department.
Yeah,
in
I
this
was
case.
superintendent, yeah.
That would be,
All right.
Keith wears these two different hats, as you know, so talk to him. One is the tree warden and another as the highway superintendent.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for joining us, and feel free to stay or go.
All right, have a good night. Thank you.
All right, so, so it's important to get Patty up to speed about the DMCTC proposal. And we had a very preliminary conversation at the last meeting. It's important as we get in, have more of these discussions that all people who end up voting have been privy to all the conversations.
If I'm not comfortable, you've got enough people, if I'm not comfortable,
Yeah,
you can pass
that's right.
without me
That's
voting, so.
That's right, and we're not going to do any votes tonight.
Okay.
I have some things that I'd like to share and then have a conversation. We end up spending 30 minutes more than I'd anticipated on the tree proposal, so I don't necessarily want to spend too much more time on this tonight. But, so 2 years ago, the MCTC had a proposal that they worked with the planning board all the way up to annual town meeting. They have leased commercial space at Sugarloaf shops for retail sale of cannabis products. And they have more extra space that they would like to use for a limited form, what they describe as a limited form of marijuana product manufacturing, all right? And so 2 years ago, they noted, I'll show you, Patty, that there's a line in our zoning bylaws in the table of use where it says there are two different things. There's an or, you see that it reads marijuana manufacturer or registered marijuana dispensary. And it's not allowed in AR1 or AR2, or agricultural residential districts. And currently it's not allowed in the commercial districts. So there's an N there. And it's allowed by special permit in the other two districts, commercial, industrial, and industrial. I'm gonna do a little screen share again, because I think this conversation will be enhanced by just us looking at the town zoning map. Zoning map, all right. Okay, because I think people should just be aware, this is the active town zoning map. The yellow areas are various little commercial districts, okay? And then there are these little zones in this sort of browny color that are the commercial this is commercial industrial, so this is where Yankee Candles factory is on Christian. Here's where the former Tea Guys building is, that's now this event company whose name I'm blanking on, whatever. And then up here, what was that?
Klondike.
Klondike, thank you, Sarah. And then up here near town offices is two more little commercial industrial districts. So we don't have in Whately much area zoned commercial, industrial, and then there's industrial, okay? So in those commercial, industrial, and industrial districts, we allow marijuana manufacturers and registered marijuana dispensaries, though effectively, you know, most of what's in those current zones is kind of already taken. The Yankee Candle is not gonna vacate. Klondike is not gonna vacate. I mean, so already, even though we allow these uses in these two very small zones in town, it's not really making that much available, just to be aware of that piece. I've been thinking a lot about this particular proposal. The original proposal was more involved. They defined a new use, they proposed. So this is a case where a zoning bylaw proposal did not originate from the planning board. And I mean, my own personal opinion is that you might say the planning board members, when we originate something, we're assumed to be working on best faith, good intentions, trying to look for the best interest of the community. That's what we do these things. When others, and the law makes this perfectly fine, others may propose and request zoning bylaw changes. Seems to me the duty of the planning board is to give those somewhat higher level of scrutiny, because, you know, there's an advocacy and there's potential particular interest. That doesn't make them wrong or that we shouldn't entertain them. It just means that there's maybe a little bit more due diligence on our part that's expected. We got to a point before where the planning board was kind of split in the end, and we took no position. We wrote a report that we sent to the select board in advance of town meeting on the then DMCTC proposal, which defined a new use for limited marijuana product manufacturing. And then there is a detailed definition. I can share all of this with you right now, I'm giving you just a thin summary of.
Yep, that's 10,000 foot view, that's
Right,
right.
the 10,000 foot view. There's some detailed definitional language about what a limited marijuana product manufacturer was. The essence of the idea was that no hazardous materials, just water-based processes. And their argument was that it was very much akin to, you know, baking. I mean, and anyway, that was and they were saying if they could be able to do that in a commercial zone where their current property in Sugarloaf shops is, then they could expand, and so forth. And they felt, and that's why they were advocating for this change. The planning board felt, and we were split, honestly, you know, good arguments on both sides, whether to have this or not. There's a report that I can reshare to make sure you have a chance to see it, that sort of lays out the arguments for and against. We basically said, here are reasons for and against, send it up to the select board put it on the town meeting warrant, and then as town meeting approached, DMCTC withdrew. I think maybe because, well, I won't even try to speculate why, but there is a risk that if a zoning bylaw fails at town meeting, then that same thing cannot be brought up again within 2 years. So there's a kind of cooling off period, you know, you just can't keep hammering this until it passes, right? So they've come forward with
I'm sorry, this was 2 years
it
ago?
was 2 years, ago,
Okay,
right?
and this is the same shopping thing that the Cheech and Chong is in now, right?
Yes, Cheech and
Okay.
Chong is around the corner, all right? So they have a streamlined version that they're proposing that uses a footnote. I still haven't taken this before town council for review, but I've come to have some concerns that I wanted to share with all of you. Sort of a discussion
Excuse me,
about.
just a moment. Patty, it's where CHP used to be.
Okay,
So it's in
Oh,
the
okay.
other side.
okay.
Okay,
Sorry, Brian.
Thank you.
appreciate it.
We can't deliberate outside of a public,
Meeting.
We are deliberating. This is a public
it's not
hearing.
here now.
This is not a public hearing. And we can deliver, because what we need to do about a proposal like this is just as if it were originating on our board. We can work with a proponent to revise it, improve it, refine it, and then we vote as a board in a public meeting like this, whether to, schedule a public hearing on it.
Okay,
And so we have to decide, like, when we feel, we can simply say we don't want to schedule a public hearing if we just don't support it. And I don't have that position.
okay.
I'm not sure I'm ready today to recommend to all of you, but I don't know that I would advocate that we go forward and schedule a public hearing on this.
Right.
I think we should be deliberating carefully and working with, I was expecting to provide feedback to the MCTC tonight. One of the things that I thought about in general is, after really looking hard at the zoning bylaws do not explicitly say what sorts of things should or should not be in the commercial district. It doesn't really say what commercial district is for. A lot of it's left to our intuitions, and I've been trying to study all the table of uses and see what is and isn't allowed, or when special permits are used, to sort of infer the underlying theory or intent of the commercial district. And I do understand that in Whately, our commercial district is sort of unique or unusual in that it blends residential uses and commercial uses. And thus, it seems to me a lot of the decision-making, and this is just inference, because it's not explicit, that the rationale for when things are not allowed in the commercial district versus maybe by special permit, seems to me to be around, like, is this going to be a nuisance for residential dwellers in the district? And we're basically prioritizing, for good reason, the interests of residents who reside within the commercial districts in town, of which you can see where these little districts are. And so I've been then now trying to figure out, well, how much of what they're proposing to do is would create the kinds of nuisances or the concerns that residential dwellers in the commercial district might have. So in looking at this, one of the things that their current proposal does, because the current table of use line has an or.
Okay.
It says marijuana manufacturer or registered marijuana dispensary, RMD. And their proposal changes in the commercial district a no on both, either one, from no to by special permit. Now I'm gonna share with you, I just want you to see the language in our zoning bylaws about, now I'm gonna have to do a new share. So here, just let me share a copy of the zoning bylaws. So you can see a registered marijuana dispensary. See, this thing is now getting in the way. Okay, so if you read that, give you a moment to read what an RMD is.
I think the answer is pretty much in the name,
Yes,
so.
my opinion, and this is where we deliberate and we discuss, is that this to me seems like quite a big deal. I mean, look at what an RMD can do. They not only acquire, cultivate, possess, process, transfer, they do many things with respect to cannabis, all right? Now, just let that idea float out for a second. I want to show you this other definition, just a little bit above. An off-site registered marijuana dispensary. Just read that,
Glare.
okay? It's up here.
No, I know, it's the glare for the lights.
Okay. Okay. All right, so an off-site one just dispenses supplies and all of that, but doesn't do any manufacturing, anything like that. So I was studying these two definitions and looking in our bylaws and noted that, well, a off-site RMD is allowed by special permit in the commercial district. So when the bylaw was, the previous planning board, their judgments encoded in this table of use said, well, whatever an off-site RMD is, we think that that's okay in the commercial district. And I can kind of get it. It's sort of retail-y, right? So the logic makes sense to me. Then I compared off-site RMD to a regular RMD, and I thought, oh, I can kind of see why maybe the then planning board was like, having an RMD in a commercial district where there are other residential dwellers, maybe that's a bridge too far. But what they did is they created one line in the table of use with an or. Because they said in their minds, and I'm inferring, that marijuana manufacturing and RMDs are kind of close, similar, so we'll treat them equivalently. Now, DMCTC is not advocating for RMDs in the commercial district. But because of this line in the table, they're thinking, well, we'll just turn them both into by special permit, but add this little footnote that's really about limiting the definition of a marijuana manufacturer. So I think that it's an overreach, is my personal opinion, that the way I might give feedback to DMCTC on this is say, modify the bylaw proposal to create two lines in our table of use. One is an RMD. And leave the original restrictions in place for RMDs. No, for AR1, AR2 and commercial. Because that kind of seems to, I mean, again, I'm just giving you my opinion, and I'm interested in your feedback. That, because the question is, to what extent does this board feel like, well, there's always that was then, a board at one point in time in history made a decision, and now a new board is going to rethink it, and we can do that. Didn't work so well with, say, Roe v. Wade, like when new judges come into place, right? I mean, I suppose that's a matter of opinion and certainly outside the purview of the planning board. But I'm inclined to feel like I don't wanna flip RMDs to allowed in the commercial district by special permit. I'd like to respect the prior judgment of a planning board and voters in town with respect to RMDs.
Can I?
Go ahead.
Question? Okay, so essentially what DMCTC has now is the off-site dispensary, basically, right? It's the retail.
No, they actually have, a marijuana retailer is permitted, and that's a separate definition, and that's
Okay.
allowed in the commercial
Okay.
district.
But that is very similar to the off-site
Yeah,
thing, you know what I mean? Like, it's more of just a retail, for all intents and purposes, it's a store.
yeah, I think
Really?
that's right. So a marijuana retailer
Okay,
or off-site medical
Yeah.
marijuana, so those two are one line in the table of
Okay.
use with an or.
yes,
These ors are gonna really be the death of us, right? So a marijuana retailer or OMMD, which was up here.
yeah,
Right? Those are not allowed in AR1 or AR2 by special permit in C, CI, and industrial.
okay,
So that was the deal for retailers.
right. But
And so-
now, essentially with DMCTC's proposal, they really are gonna have a registered marijuana dispensary, an RMD, right? I just don't
No,
know
no,
if
no.
I'm thinking of this in the wrong
Yeah,
way.
you're thinking of the little
Okay.
bit that they're proposing a change, their motivation only pertains to marijuana manufacturing.
Right,
They have not expressed any interest in RMDs or anything like that.
okay.
So there's a kind of side effect of what they're proposing.
Yeah, well, my thinking is, that if they're looking to do some manufacturing, which is essentially processing, does that then open us up to some risk of someone to later on down the road, if DMCTC is allowed to do this, down the road, does that open the door for somebody who wants to set up an RMD in the commercial district to say, okay, well, this business is essentially doing the same thing?
Not if, so that, their proposal would open that door.
Right.
And create that risk.
Right,
And so my counter to that would be to split the table of use
Okay.
into two separate lines.
Yeah.
One that pertains, so that we respond to their intent. So one thing we could do is say, sorry, we feel your pain, you'd like to use this space in the commercial district for this kind of marijuana manufacturing, we're not gonna go for that. That's certainly, we
Right.
could just do that, and they could press the case and take it before
Right.
voters, and voters could do whatever they do. Or we could try to be constructive in responding by saying, look, we're not, you didn't care about RMDs in the commercial district, so we're gonna refine your proposal to create a zoning bylaw revision that splits what's currently one row into two,
okay,
where one row is specifically about RMDs only, so we get rid of the or.
Yeah.
And we have one row that treats RMDs exactly the way they're currently
Mhm.
treated in the bylaw.
okay,
And then we create a second line for marijuana manufacturers that might be treated the way they would like marijuana manufacturers to be treated, possibly with this footnote. And I have to say that I have questions about the use of footnotes, the way
Sure.
they're doing. I'd wanna, again, I
Spell it out.
understand their intent. I will say, and I do wanna I wanna give Sarah's the only other current member of the board who was present
Mhm.
during the board's deliberations 2 years ago, you know, and in full disclosure, I was more or less supportive of what DMCTC was proposing then.
okay,
It was complicated, but I personally was comfortable. The board as a whole was split,
Mhm.
all right? And I respect that, right? And this is the way it goes. That's why we ultimately chose to take no position as a board.
Mhm.
So where I am today is, and I've been trying to sort of think through the options. Like, number one, I would say, whatever we do with this, my recommendation would be minimally, we split this up into two separate rows as I described. And then I'd still want to get to town council about this footnote strategy,
Mhm.
but I actually want to have a conversation with all of you about, and DMCTC, about whether really the right strategy is in some sense to revive what was proposed 2 years ago. I think this board should look at that.
Yeah.
But that brings up, and again, I wanna shut up in a second, just so Sarah can say her piece. But I really feel that I have this concern that about how the turnover in a board, like, I do feel like past judgment should be respected or overturned only with a lot of deliberation. Like, if the previous board was split, it means something, we should take that as something important before we just cast that aside, right? So, and that would pertain to just bringing back the old proposal. Maybe the new proposal sort of solves that problem, I'm not sure. So I just wanna stop and see if Sarah would like to talk about her thing.
Yes, she's shaking her head.
Saturday.
I want to bring back even farther history. How marijuana came in the Massachusetts was that it was first medical marijuana was the first thing, and that is what's residual here. The ORMD and the RMD are both medical marijuana. So those are the original ways we brought it in, allowed it in town. Then it was accepted by the state. Yeah, recreational use. And that's where the new rules are kind of on top of those old medical ones are still there. They haven't left. So that's some of the history behind why the names are so confusing. The ORMD and RMD are both medical marijuana, not recreational. And those are, as I don't know if any of you know, from like the North Amherst, where the auction barn used to be in North Amherst. That's only medical marijuana still. So they have different rules. So as my daughter and husband found out, without their medical card, they couldn't buy anything there. So that is why there's these multiple layers that are a bit conflicting, because there were different rules that came in at different times. So
What are your thoughts just about this new proposal from DNCTC? And how we should handle it?
my bigger thing is there are other things percolating with this area of commercial in Whately and the push for what we want there.
Yeah.
And another thing is that CHP is approved to be a recreational marijuana dispensary.
CHP?
Where CHP was.
Oh, I see. Okay, right.
So that end of the building is also recreational. In town, we only have 3 that are allowed. And so the first one that it went through the process, and the owner had a criminal issue in Connecticut, I believe. And so that was not continued. And the other 2, the places that we have that the board historically approved for marijuana dispensaries happened to both be in this same building. Cheech and Chong finally opened. We got one. But this other area, the other end of that building that faces the ancient landmark, Shelley Deli,
Kelly, oh my
the
gosh.
Irving Station, is also approved for a dispensary. So not that they can use that in that full space that they have there. So
I was supposed to have an exit 35 committee meeting Monday, and then it fell apart and happened, but that whole area being potentially rezoned, redeveloped,
Right.
plans going forward. I'm all hesitant for that, but also you're changing it for all commercial. Like
Yes.
my building on Egypt Road, I could pursue that via special permit. 'Cause
That's
it's not
right.
allowed use in that area. So
That's
it's not this only for that property. It's
That's right.
Exactly
the
right.
whole town.
Yes.
And I'm a little more conservative on this right now, that I'm not there for moving forward with this
That's
right now,
what-
because of that fact.
It's exactly true that, if. Yeah.
I think if there might not be a lot of town folk against it where it is right now,
Yeah,
but if I were to do this on Egypt Road,
yeah,
I would have protests in the street.
yeah.
It's Egypt Road. Is it worth, and, granted, hour and 25 minutes I've been on this board.
I thought you were just going to listen.
I know. No, I understand what you're saying exactly. I'm wondering if it's worth it to take a larger picture and look at the whole thing.
Mhm.
And I don't know enough about what the planning board does. I probably should. But it seems like we're throwing darts at a moving target. As far as growth and development within Whately and what we want to see, and as I understand it, that where they want to put it, it's already approved as a dispensary, but they also want to, make gummies.
Yeah, they want to do some additional, they have more space than they can use for retail or dispensaries.
Right,
And they're more or less, and again, this is not our problem necessarily,
right.
though there is a economic development aspect to this, in that they are in town doing cultivation, and there would be some benefits potentially to enabling them to expand their business. But JD makes this other point that their interest is very limited to this one area in
Right.
town. But our commercial district is larger than just that
Okay.
district, right?
Muffins could take the back and
And they've actually put that not Muffins, but DMCTC has offered that as an argument in favor of their proposal, that would allow an organization like Muffins to expand their business if they, in this way, if they wanted to. And, you know, this is where I think people's judgments about cannabis is, because I look at other things in the zoning bylaws that we do allow by special permit in the commercial district. Like I said, I started this about trying to intuit, what do we want and not want in the commercial district in general?
Right.
What kinds of things should be excluded, what should be included? And I see examples of things like, well, in the commercial, we allow enclosed assembly, bottling, packaging, or finishing plants of non-hazardous materials. Other light industrial uses not involving the use of hazardous material as a principal activity. Special permit, this is by special permit in the commercial district. When we talked about OMPDs, you can do indoor marijuana cultivation in the commercial district, indoor, not out.
Right.
You can do a farmer brewery. I don't know if you think of this, but I was like looking for examples I could sort of see in the vicinity, and like a bake shop is perfectly fine in the
Right.
commercial district. But I think people's intuitions and comfort levels, which that's why we're here, we're trying to kind of get our, see where our comfort levels are, what we assess on behalf of the town
Right.
is appropriate.
I think we gotta, I don't know, I think that with the time right now, we gotta.
Yeah, I do want to, so we're gonna continue this at the next planning board.
Can you share with us ahead of the next meeting that information from last time, DMCTC? And I might already have it and I just need
Yes,
to be
I will
reminded on.
reach
I know
out.
that might be fun.
I will reshare,
Okay, perfect.
I will reshare those details.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And so what I wanna say is like what we talked about tonight, and I'll try to maybe circulate a proposal and include DNC on my message, that like one response from us is at least the splitting
Mhm.
of the rows. But ultimately, our job is going to be to decide whether, I mean, personally, I think that we should at least have a public hearing to see if there's other
Yeah.
inputs
Yeah.
besides ours and other judgments.
Stakeholders.
But we shouldn't have a public hearing on anything that we don't think just basically passes muster to go in the zoning bylaws. And this current proposal, I say, doesn't meet that threshold because of this or issue. And then,
But I just wanted, they have a right, if we as a board say we're not comfortable with this, the select board are not comfortable with it, they can petition town meeting.
They can,
right.
They have a right to bring it before
they
town. meeting.
absolutely do, and they've been informed.
Because the townspeople who want to make this decision, not the planning board.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, they're citizen specific petitions, but they, as a property owner, can submit a request to the select board.
Yep.
Which could then then we become required to hold a public hearing. But I think they understand that that's another risky strategy,
Mhm.
because if they do something that won't pass muster, because it really wasn't developed collaboratively with a planning board, it's not likely to succeed.
Just trying to clarify their rights, they have a
Yeah.
right to do that.
Right, they absolutely do. Okay, very good, thank you. So we're gonna close on that topic, and we're gonna move to the next item on our agenda, which was, we wanted to talk briefly about the communication with the building commissioner or building inspector regarding landscape screening at 7 River Road. And so, and I don't know if Ethan, or any others have still on, oh yeah, I see Ethan is still here. So and again, so where things were left. Okay, now this is for Patty's benefit. There's an outdoor cultivation facility operated by DMCTC at 7 River Road. The northern fence line, there's a security fence there. that is in view of various abutters to the north. The time the planning board approved the site plan for 7 River Road, we specified various plantings along that northern fence line to kind of more or less hide it from view. It's a long fence line and so forth. Subsequent to the planning board's approval of that site plan, the adjacent abutter to the north, who has farmland, somewhat more or less objected, and said, well, if you plant those trees or whatever, then that's gonna shade my farmland, and that's gonna impact my whatever. So, that was done between the abutter and DMCTC. It led to DMCTC basically not moving forward with any landscape screening while this was all gonna, in theory, be worked out amicably. That has never really happened, and there seemed to be, I don't know, I wouldn't say fine people on both sides, but people have not quite worked together. And I don't wanna blame anyone or point any fingers, but finally other abutters were saying, hey, what's going on? There's still this ugly fence line and nothing's happening. So I've reached out to go ahead.
Yeah, it's not our job to deliberate this matter and
No.
what to do. It's the building inspector's job. So
Right.
the town administrator said, look, it's not your purview to order them to do this. You have to ask the building inspector to inspect and make a determination whether they follow the plan, they didn't follow the plan. So that's what we did.
Right. Now, at our last meeting, DMCDC said, look, they feel that they've tried to, come up with a plan or engage with their northern abutter on a different plan. Like there's a specified plan whenever we approved the site plan that was considered by some to be objectionable. It would do the screening, but it might have these other adverse impacts. The MCDC said, look, we'll just go do that to just get this off the list and be compliant. They have, the last I heard, they were not quite able to get agreement on what a new planting plan would be that would be agreeable. So they feel like, well, they just kind of wanna just do the original plan and get it over with. And I said, well, at our last meeting, come back to us with a plan that you, the MCTC, believe would be more, that you would like better. And respects our original intent, which is to, use native plants and shrubs and screen it and, not be eaten up by deer and so forth. Come back to us with a plan B that would be an alternative and that we would try to get that approved. And I was expecting them tonight, and to my knowledge, they're not here. The building inspector has responded to my inquiry by saying, look, he's willing to send a letter to DMCTC asking them to come back before the planning board. But it wasn't entirely clear whether that means a whole new site plan review. I'm trying to avoid the expense and labor of a full site plan review over just a change to the landscape screening portion of otherwise acceptable site plan. So I was waiting to see what was going to happen tonight. Ethan, I see you're on the call. Do you want to come off mute? And I think there's some quotes here. Oh, no, that has nothing to do with Ethan was.
She asked who Ethan is.
Ethan is one of the abutters to the north,
Okay.
not one who's immediately adjacent,
Okay,
but further and has a view.
and it's an ugly fence now. I probably just never noticed it. I probably just assumed.
Well, ugly is in the eye of the beholder, and if you,
Unattractive to some people.
yeah, and if maybe you see that every day when you're sitting on your deck, you have one view of it,
That's a good point.
right?
So the people further away don't wanna look at it, of course. They
Yeah,
don't.
okay.
Mr. Smith.
All right.
Store.
So I think we're gonna, given that DMCCC is here and I don't get
Okay,
here.
I think I'd have to see what the original plan was before I could make, because I used to do this type of stuff all the time
Yeah,
with landowners.
and if you just sometime between now and the next meeting, drive down and look at Central
Yeah.
River Road and see from the north view, you can sort of see a long green
That's
fence line.
What?
That's a yes place.
Okay. Okay.
I'm going to try to go back and get some clarity from,
What was the
Because-
original planting plan?
it was on the plan, I can.
Okay, no,
It
I'm
was a
just,
mixture of trees and shrubs of varying heights and along.
and he's worried about shading or worried about invasive coming into his crop and,
He was worried about shading primarily, like, because the trees were supposed to be of a certain height,
ah,
so forth. So that was kind of the issue. All right, because all I really wanted, I would like to resolve this, DMCTC would like to resolve this. And it seems like for whatever reason, the abutters are not quite able to, engage on or come to an agreement on a plan. So it's gonna be our decision about what to do. So I'm gonna just see if I can get if DMCPC has a new landscape proposal that's different and somehow better than what we approved. And if so, how we could approve that without having to go through the rigmarole of a formal public hearing with notices and
all that stuff.
and all that stuff. And that aspect of the legal process is a little bit unclear to me at this point. Okay, so that's where we are on communications with the building inspector about Seven River Road.
Okay.
So now, next topic, update on the floodplain overlay district bylaw project. And this is where actually both Scott and I were hoping you, Patty, would be, yeah, I am looking at you, would be able to be particularly helpful. But for now, I'm gonna give you the current status. The state is requiring all municipalities update their floodplain bylaws. There's a model, and it basically determines whether we're going to be eligible for under the NFIP. I wish I could be a little bit more articulate about what it is, the important benefits for us, but we basically need to do this. And we, the planning board, until early to mid 2022, had been working and developing with help from the Franklin Regional Council of Governments, others. We had a draft bylaw, new floodplain bylaw that had gotten pretty much all the way through us. We even had one public hearing on it, but there were two sticking points. One was the law requires the designation of a floodplain administrator. And the state at the time took the position that that had to be staff. It couldn't be, an unpaid, whatever.
Volunteer.
Couldn't be unpaid volunteer. And somewhat reluctantly at the time, the town administrator, the then town administrator said, well, we'll designate that to be the community development coordinator.
Okay.
And we wrote that into the bylaw. Seemingly resolving that sticking point, but then the other sticking point was with the Conservation Commission. There was a part of the bylaw that basically required the Conservation Commission to sort of review and approve all development activities within the floodplain overlay district. And the Conservation Commission's response, primarily Scott's, was like, well, what does this mean? Like, what would be, what would the regulations be, blah, blah. And anyway, the planning board said, we can't quite work this out, we need assistance from the town. The community development coordinator position had been filled. He sort of said, why don't you guys work it out, and figure out what's gonna, and come back to the planning board with a.
Do we have the new overlay? With the
We
new,
have new draft FEMA maps have now been published.
because the last time they were published was
A long time ago, but there's no reason why we cannot and should not revise our bylaws, even referring.
Oh,
to
no,
old-
I'm just saying it would be nice to see what they're talking about when the Concom has to, oversee any development with it, because right now it's 200 feet, right? We can, Concom has to 200 feet,
Yeah,
and if something else impacts, then you know, you can get involved.
I have a link to the new draft.
Okay, yeah, can you
That
say,
show, it's really about the 100-year flood risk zone.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so we kind of, the whole thing got tabled. And Judy was our primary person driving it, and now she's not on the board, so I'm kind of picking up this ball for now. But I'm going to want to work with you now on this, because I think you're particularly knowledgeable about these issues. But I've separately done some email with Scott about some proposed new language on the portion of the draft floodplain bylaw that pertains to the conservation.
and I can get with
control.
Scott and talk with him as well.
So all I want, this is something that we are going to wrap up, get to a public hearing and get before voters at annual town meeting in 2025. So there you are. And so you and I will start to work offline. I'll circulate that last clean draft of the floodplain bylaw, so you all have a chance to look at it and compare it to the current, well, you don't even have to look at the current language in our bylaws, because that's all going to be replaced. And then the latest news, there's two outstanding issues. So now our new town administrator says, not gonna be the floodplain administrator, community development coordinator, not gonna be the floodplain administrator, wants the building inspector to be the floodplain administrator.
My first thought is hire somebody like they're doing with the Conservation Commission to do Whately, Sunderland, Deerfield, just go up the river.
Yeah, well, the problem is, of course, can't do anything contingent on hiring.
Oh, no, I'm just saying that's where my brain immediately ran to. So we need somebody that's dedicated to that position, we being everybody,
Yeah,
that having a mixed town person, very much like the Conservation Commission, whatever they're calling that person, would be a way there, it's the same river, the 100-year floodplains on either side of that river.
well, there's also stuff up.
Yeah.
FERCog's not gonna do one of this?
Or
Uh,
FERCog.
Well, so building inspector is through FERCog, our building.
Inspection services through.
Yeah,
FERCog,
inspection
but
services.
Planning and stuff is not through the building inspector.
Yeah, that's, so the person we were working with at FERCog has since retired as well. And there's been a lot of turnover
I know,
related to this particular topic.
I know that Scott's looking to get a conservation agent to work with some
Right, they-
towns.
But let me just.
Ashfield's managing it right now, yeah.
So right now, we went to the state.
Yeah.
The state agreed that, well, they're no longer taking a hard line that the floodplain administrator must be town staff. They're open to the idea that it being a building inspector through a shared service like FERCog, but they would expect documented evidence that the shared service provider is willing and able to serve that role. So Pete, our town administrator, has been trying to get an answer from FERCog as to whether our building inspector would be, able to provide, serve as the floodplain administrator if we
What would
write
they,
that in.
what does the floodplain administrator do?
Well,
I'll read
I
it.
won't answer that.
Okay,
All right, but that's articulated in the Bible.
because I'd rather have a horizontal, I wouldn't want a vertical construction person necessarily regulating on, and this is just me being a civil engineer. Regulating on floodplain management systems where, we've got regulated dams all up and down this river, half of the core dams dump into this river. Especially the ones up north. So I mean, it's just, I think it's a little bit more challenging than, let's just put, my feeling, I could be wrong, let's put the building inspector in charge of it.
So I'm with you. The challenge is the state is requiring us to do this by a certain deadline. Otherwise, we lose access to things that we don't want to lose access to.
Right.
The state is requiring there be a floodplain administrator designated in the bylaw. And we're in a situation where there is nobody among town staff necessarily willing or qualified to be that individual. And our ability to hire such a person to do just that, or, you know, that's like, I don't know how that happens.
I don't, wow, getting this done by May of 25 sounds ambitious.
So, but other towns have done this,
Okay,
you know, and other towns have, like Conway, I've spoken to the town administrator of Conway. They have passed a bylaw that is following the state model, and she has been designated, not to her delight, but has been designated the floodplain administrator, and she's a little, you know, not so wild about that. So, anyway,
okay.
I just wanted to update you, to let you know, we're gonna be, this is something that I've been trying to pick up and come up to speed on, and I'm going to be asking you to help me on that. So more to come on that.
Too late to get unsworn in?
Yeah. It's gonna be so much fun.
Oh,
Can't tell you how much fun we're gonna have. Are there updates? So I'm moving off. of-
Yeah, so I went to my 35 meeting Monday and was like this, a hybrid meeting, and I was the only one here, and I went on Zoom and I was the only one there.
You're the only one in the meeting.
Could you explain
You're the whole
what this
committee.
exercise is?
Sylvie left her position here at the town. I think she was the one that was in charge of coordination of all this stuff. So it just kind of fell through the cracks. But
Can you explain what this committee is doing?
okay, so exit 35 is up by Shelley Deli.
Yeah,
They're looking to, they're trying to create, more development in that area. There's a couple of single family dwellings up where the old Fox fertilizer,
yeah,
that the elderly people live. Now is the time to rezone that area to try to make it kind of like a business opportunity. So,
okay, Makes sense.
trying to be perhaps a new zoning district. I'm like, just throwing that out there. Well, car washes are not allowed in Whately. I don't understand why, but you
Probably
could,
water.
they're all recycled water anyways.
Yeah.
They don't, there's no discharge, but that's not allowed in Whately. You could have a bank there, you could have a
Oh, easily.
CVS, a Walgreens, you could have a Starbucks, you could have something that would pay a lot of tax money into the town.
okay,
So we're tasked with trying to redevelop that area up there.
okay,
So that's what this is about.
got it.
From a, among the finance committee, we need something in the foundation. We need something with a foundation that pays taxes, town of Whately.
Right.
That's what we need. We don't need food trucks, we don't need maker spaces. We need something with a foundation.
Right.
I don't care what the foundation is, something that pays property taxes.
Yeah,
Because the costs to run Whately are increasing more per year than what we can collect with the 2.5%.
okay, thank you.
All right, so
So I had something,
waiting here for another meeting to get organized.
so I had something else that I wanted to say. And I don't know if you guys touched on this because I think early last month.
We assign you a bunch of actions.
What is the nitty gritty with, the governor's, housing law that she passed with making two families by right and accessory dwelling units and all that, and how does that impact us? What's going on with that? What do we have to do to be in compliance with that and maybe still have a little bit of control? Sarah's shaking her head, yes.
Well, okay, so I'll take that under this current agenda item because one of the projects we talked about, and in fact, we floated your name at the last meeting.
Okay.
But about dealing with revising the ADU, right now in our zoning bylaws, we talk about accessory apartments.
Yeah.
And our current zoning bylaws are not compliant with the new law.
Yeah.
Because we restrict based on ownership, we limit size to like 600 square feet, you know, so we're not compliant. The state is coming out with new guidelines, but basically our existing zoning bylaws as it applies to ADUs and, well, all I'm really familiar with at this moment about ADUs is no longer enforceable.
I was speaking, I had a conversation 2 days ago with a local inspector in the city of Greenfield.
Okay.
She's a building inspector and an registered architect, lovely woman. And she said basically her interpretation of it is that we can't discriminate we can't make any laws that hinder accessibility of more housing. Like, you can add, you can't go to families, it's gonna be by right now. Right now, Whately, it's not by right, it's going to be by right.
Yeah,
It's
I'm not
not
sure
just
about
ADUs,
is it? Yeah,
It's
is it
adding them to,
two-family?
it's adding accessory apartments, stuff like that. That's what her interpretation of was. Becomes tricky on their end when you already have a duplex and you want to add a third unit.
Yeah.
That now becomes a commercial. And she said, you still have to meet all of the rules about setbacks.
Right, and septic.
Septic, well, parking, you still have to meet all of those things. It doesn't, but you can't say, no, you can't have it.
Yeah, and there are different rules about parking too, so you
They
can't
are.
necessarily require additional
So it'd be
parking.
nice to know what they did do and how we meld our rules to work for that.
Yes, so there is a project for us to take up when and how we can.
Yeah.
To get our minds around the new laws and more.
I haven't
guidance
read
is
the law.
coming out.
Are we still waiting for it to come out? I haven't read it. It's-
I haven't read it, the law has been passed and signed.
Yeah.
And office of the HLC of, whatever, the state agency is coming out with more guidance to towns and more detail about what can be done. So I'm not yet prepared myself tonight to take an
Right, okay.
informed opinion. All I can tell you is that what I know is our zoning, I know two things that I believe to be factual. One, our current zoning bylaws with respect to ADUs at least, I don't know about multifamily.
She was saying it was two families.
Could be, could be. All I know is that our ADUs were not compliant
Yeah.
because the law is now in effect.
Yeah.
Well, so it could be possible that the law has been signed but doesn't actually go into effect until February of 2025.
I don't know.
Or it could be the case, again, I'm sorry, I should be better informed, but this is you're dealing with me right now. Either, it could be that the law is in effect because it's signed, but cities and towns have some time till February 2025 before things go fully into effect. So
But something needs probably to come to annual town meeting next year.
Right. Especially.
There's something to do.
let me just point this out. The answer in some sense is should come to annual town meeting, but to the extent that it doesn't, anything that doesn't conform to state law is simply not enforceable.
Okay,
So if we took no action, and I'm not recommending this, but somebody could say, look, you are restricted to 600 square feet, but the state law says this, so screw you, we're doing a 900 square foot ADU and try to stop us, and we can't. So there are certain things where we do have some discretion. There are things related to, I think, use of ADUs for short-term rentals. Like we could deliberate and change our language so that,
You mean like an Airbnb?
yeah, like I think we could, if we wanted to, say you can have an ADU of this size, by right, but you cannot use it for short-term rentals, or we can regulate
I
this.
think in existing properties right now, the hindrance is gonna be Title V.
Yes,
That's what's gonna slow it
it
down.
is.
People that already have a 4-bedroom septic,
Right.
they just don't have the capacity to add. That's gonna stop it. That's what's gonna happen. It's the new places where you wanna put up place and have 2-bedroom apartments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which before was not allowed, and now it sounds like it is allowed.
Yeah, so it would be okay within an existing footprint, if you have a septic for a,
We're willing to
4-bedroom
upgrade.
house and you split your house without changing the number of bedrooms,
Yep.
then you're good. So, and those could probably pass by right. So what I had articulated at our last meeting, more or less after you had to run off, is that I want people to kind of start to pick things that they're passionate about or knowledgeable about, to sort of own an issue on behalf of the board to help drive us. So we don't all have to know everything about everything. And so I'm trying to become more knowledgeable about floodplain to get this through with now your assistance. And then, I think Sarah was gonna work on some things about fees. You were going to work on some things about easy changes to subdivisions.
Yes.
Laura, based on recommendations.
Yeah, there was some
Judy.
housekeeping issues that came up with Peter, so
What was that?
housekeeping issues with zoning bylaws.
And there was this issue about outdated bylaw related to recreational vehicles and mobile homes.
Yes, because the building inspector said that our definition of it is outdated.
Outdated.
Because it's not a mobile home, it's a hut house.
Right. So there are these sleeping dogs in our bylaws that are old, that as soon as we have the capacity as a board to deal with them, we should deal with them. The thing that's urgent is floodplain, because there's state deadlines involved and the real loss of access to NFIP. But other things, we just do as best as we can, given our resources.
Okay.
Are there any other updates at this point? I know that I wanted to follow up after last meeting, but we can move on if there are no other updates. Sarah, you good?
Minutes.
All right, approval of the August minutes. Yeah,
I'm good with them.
okay, let me
I'm
just,
great with them.
yeah, well, you're gonna recuse yourself. Oh, I guess what I'm gonna have to do. So do I need to share my screen? I circulated the minutes. You are going to, I think, abstain.
Yeah.
I put up, I sent comments to Becca, and then applied those to the minutes. I'm not sharing my screen at the moment. I did circulate to all of you an updated copy of the minutes.
I was not here for the planning board projects. Section 5,
Right,
because I had to go to the funeral home.
yeah. Yes,
Customer, so I,
Well, this
everything
is-
prior to
I
that.
don't know that we need to explicitly record that
Yeah,
fact in the minutes.
Yeah.
We did put you down as exit 35 zoning changes
Yeah.
tentative.
Yep.
Which makes sense, given you're now on the,
Yep.
that was before we knew you would step in as our representative to the exit 35 study committee.
I tried.
All right, and yeah, we don't really know about ADUs, right? Like, and maybe if I have some spare cycles, I might start to look into this.
Okay.
But I'm prioritizing floodplain.
Okay.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve the minutes of our meeting of August 28th?
I make a motion to approve August meeting
Oh,
minutes.
Okay. And
I'll second
Sarah?
that.
All right,
Perfect.
motion has been made and seconded, roll call vote, person who made the motion,
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Judy?
Yes.
I'm voting yes,
I can't vote.
and you're abstaining you don't get to, you can help cut down trees, but you cannot.
We can't print out anything on it.
Okay, there is now the last item on our agenda, I know it's 2 minutes to go, is the things not anticipated within like 48 hours of the meeting. And there's one thing I need to put out there, and I did circulate this, I think I included you, Patty, on this, but,
Was this the Word document?
yeah, this
Okay.
is this Word document. And so, yes, the town has been going through a codification of zoning and general bylaws right now. It's so sad that general bylaws in town are basically inaccessible. They're not posted, like you have to come to town office, like thumb through a dusty old book.
They're on the website.
They're not, general bylaws are not.
Oh,
Zoning
zoning
bylaws-
bylaws, general bylaws.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So there's a whole thing about, making the all electronic and searchable, all that, and include, as part of this, the town staff have gone through the zoning bylaws, and they have 2 articles involving changes to zoning bylaws that are entirely just simple wording changes and do not make any changes in meaning or substance to our bylaws. And there's a whole bunch of revisions. I've met with Pete about these, and can at least personally attest that these are like changes of like legal references, like old references to law where that law has gone to some other thing. So they're just changes in the wording, so we're referring to the right law. Or we're making changes like instead of the site plan reviewing board, which is the current language in the bylaw, we're changing it appropriately to planning board, right? You know, things like that, very administrative changes. They'd like us to, the town has asked that we schedule a public hearing on these revisions. And the game plan is they want this done so that it can be brought up at a special town meeting, which is scheduled in November. I think it's
November 12th.
November
Yeah.
12th. So this is the kind of thing that, though we normally don't put zoning bylaw changes at special town meetings, because this is no significant changes and all of that, and it helps move this important codification process forward. So Pete has asked that we, at our next regular meeting on October 30th, the day before Halloween.
I can't be here, but that's fine.
Okay, well, we would still have a quorum.
Is it the last Thursday or the fourth Thursday? Because it was the fourth
Wednesday,
Thursday.
it's Wednesday.
Wednesday, I mean, because the fourth Wednesday is the 23rd. Or is it always the last Wednesday or is it the fourth Wednesday?
Well,
Yes.
I think historically it's been the last
Okay.
Wednesday, right? Not the fourth?
I can check my rehearsal schedule. I don't know if I have to be.
If we moved it to the 20, well, here's the thing. It needs to be the 30th because of the schedule of getting legal notices into papers.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm, yeah, I mean, if you're having a 5 o'clock meeting, I could probably make it because I don't have to.
So let me make sure, do I have at least 3 planning board members who could attend on October 30th, our regular meeting date?
I should be
Yes.
able to.
Wednesday, October 30th? Because, what this means is that it has to go into a paper of, the notice goes into a paper of record on October 15th and 22nd. For that to happen, the notice has to be to the recorder by the 11th of October. And town, we have no admin, so town staff is gonna work with, is going to do the work, and I'll provide some review to get the legal notice drafted, and they'll deal with, the Greenfield recorder. No, and they will handle the production of all legal, of the notices that must be mailed to planning boards of abutting towns and to the AGO and a couple of other entities. There are no abutters that need to receive letters, but the town's gonna do all of that work for us since we have no admin at this point. So we can make it on the 30th. And the town will also put together a little handout that summarizes the changes and explains why they're needed. And somebody from the town, probably Pete, will attend the public hearing to answer any questions about any of the revisions. So what I'd like us to agree to, I don't think we need to vote on this, that I've circulated this to all of you. I've given you my summary. I'll get more information. Oh, and it's all these revisions have already gone through town council.
Yep.
Or been submitted to town council for review. We're awaiting town council feedback. When we get town council feedback, circulate that to all of you. But this should not be, I don't see any issues of concern here, just really very straightforward changes. So I'm recommending that we do this on October 30th. Okay, so that would be the first item on our agenda for October 30th. Public hearing on that subject. All right, are there any other agenda items that we didn't anticipate? If not, then could I get a motion? Did somebody make a motion to adjourn? Oh, Sarah, did you have, you giving me that
Nope,
look?
let's adjourn.
Okay, is that a motion? Are you making a motion, Sarah?
We don't have to make a motion to adjourn.
You always have to make a motion to adjourn and it has to be seconded and then we're done.
Seconded.
All right, so Sarah made the motion got seconded. We are adjourned. Our next meeting is on October 30th for a public hearing and probably more about DMC and these other topics.